Good morning, everyone. It's starting off as a good day, so let's keep that flow going. It's up to us whether we have a good day or not. Well, it's up to God to give us the means to have a good day, and then we have to take it. If we don't take it, it just stays out there and doesn't do any good. Okay, today I want to talk about, I was looking through, there goes Kitty running. Don't you start your zoomies. He hasn't been doing anything but sitting around until I start the video. There he goes. I was looking at some pictures. I love looking at design, creativity. And what I noticed in looking through a lot of pictures of churches, the designs are across the gamut. Now, the church is not the building. It's not even the people that are in the building. It's how much of God and Jesus is in that building, and that how much the people are turning to God and Jesus in that building. That's what makes it a church. We have the 7 letters to the churches in Revelation to see a range of churches that were Christian churches. And there are Christian churches around the world. Now, even in areas where you're not allowed to even practice Christianity, there are still churches left over from when you could. There's a nice big architecture one in Iran, but they're not allowed to practice Christianity there. And that's the first one on the list. We're going to go down a list of churches. Now, I'm going to try to put some pictures up of these, at least a topical picture that shows a little bit about the church. We're going to talk about this a little bit. It's not something that, if your church isn't like one of these, you're in a bad church. Remember the first church, the Tower of Babel? God didn't like it. And it doesn't say he destroyed it or destroyed anybody. He just made them scatter, which was the original intent for the descendants of Noah. The earth is empty, go fill it up. Don't congregate in one spot, which is what they wanted to do. But churches are a chance for us to get together. It's playing with a piece of plastic on the floor. Imagine to be so simple you could just bat something away and then go chase it. We need to have fancy games with buttons and stuff we can push to occupy us. I will probably butcher these names, so forgive me if you know which church I'm talking about and I don't pronounce it right. The first church I want to look at is the Bank Cathedral in Isfahan, Iran. Beautiful paintings on the wall. Individual little cells of paintings picturing Jesus and Mary. Most of the big churches in the world are Catholic in nature, because they're the ones that set out originally to spread Christianity. The idea was there. I threw an empty Kleenex box on the floor and he got his head stuck in it for a second. Got to check everything out, Kitty. A lot of it seemed to be that churches drew on the best architecture. They seem to have more money than God. I'm being sarcastic, but if the church is more important than God, then there's a problem. But they seem to have more money than dirt. How's that? So they hired the best architectures, they hired the best sculptors, the best painters, Michelangelo, Sistine Chapel. We've got a lot of great historical buildings that we can look at. And when you go to a city, I'm going to lock you up, Kitty, if you don't settle down. like I said before, he was completely quiet until I started talking. He knows he's getting attention. Kitty, kitty, settle down. Okay. A more, I won't say modernistic, but it's certainly a different style design is the, this is in Reykjavik, Ireland. I know how to say Reykjavik, but I don't, how Grimskurja in Ireland. Beautiful. Almost looks like a rocket, a missile going up. All churches, older churches, have bell towers. You say, well, why do they have bell towers? Well, people didn't carry wristwatches. They didn't have their phones. They didn't have a clock on the counter. This was the alarm clock of the day. When you heard it, and they do this still in the Middle East, in Muslim countries, they are told to pray at certain points of time. So they have this speaker come on telling them it's time to pray. The ideas are right in principle, but the way they're carried out, it's just bad. If you've got the gospel in your church, that's what you need. And you've got people in there to spread the gospel with. Okay. This looks more like a modern church, but it's the Dili Cathedral in East Timor. It's a small country, one of the smallest countries in the world, and yet they have this big modernized church. It was completed in '88, so it's fairly modern. They didn't build it with the old style stuff, but it's similar to, you know, in Manila. It's got a lot of Eastern influence in it. A big Gothic cathedral would be the Cologne Cathedral in Cologne, Germany. Very sharp lines. And the picture I'm going to post up here has the bridge going to it. It's an amazing sight. Beautiful. Yes, we can build beautiful churches. What do you have inside? You got to be careful that all these fancy, beautiful buildings don't become whitewashed tombs, as Jesus described the religious leaders of the day. Beautiful on the outside, but dead on the inside. The next one I'd like to point out, and again, if you're in these cities, you want to go look at these. Even in Atlanta, there's a beautiful church downtown, a couple of them, beautiful architecture. There's even a mosque down there that, I don't care what religion it is, I just like looking at the architecture. We can get into whether or not God's involved or not, but beautiful design. I wish I could do this. I can copy something, but I can't store the image in my head. So I need these stimuli to be able to appreciate. But the Basilica of Saint Anne de Paul in Quebec City, Canada. And I probably pronounced that wrong. Now, there are multiple churches in every city. Some of them are competing with each other as far as which one's better. This one is a beautiful looking building, even if you don't go in it, and you don't have to. A lot of times what you can do is find these churches online, and they do walking tours on many of these sites, and it would just take you through the inside. You can do a complete walking tour of the Holy Land. Walk on the Via della Rosa. Go into the various churches there. Some of them have been commercialized so bad, or shall I say the word bastardized, so bad that they're not worth looking at, and there's going to be a line. However, still something worth seeing if you're ever there. You could walk in the same area that Jesus did, which is something that everyone should do at least once. Another church, and they call them by different names depending on the language. The Basilica of Immaculate Conception in Jardin, Colombia. We're going around the world to look at these. This one, again, beautiful architecture and very sharp lines. Okay, I'm going to stop the video because Kitty is getting out of here. Okay, I'm back. The less I pay attention to him, the more he becomes obnoxious. He started biting my arm. That was the end. But this church in Colombia really it's beautiful inside, wooden pews. I may or may not put pictures up for every one of these. I've got pictures right here on this website I'm looking at. I'll have to see if I can get these onto my phone so I can upload them and get them assigned right. Again, we're going around the world. The San Paulo Cathedral in Macau, China. Again, it's a different religion based there, yet there are Christian Catholic churches in pretty much every major city in the world. And they have the, sculptures, this people sitting in little cutouts that they've built. Beautiful outside sculptures. Of course, they all have pillars and everything. Our Lady of the Cathedral in Leon, Nicaragua. The whole upper structure is white. The roof. And you can climb up there and walk along it. They charge a small donation to do that. That's how they maintain their churches. Small fees are okay, because they do have to maintain it. If you're going to put people into an area, people are going to trample on it and destroy it to some degree or another. So you got to collect money for that to fix it. But that's a beautiful looking. You could see that, probably see that from space. We have the York Minster in York in the UK. It looks a lot like Notre Dame in that type of style, Gothic style. They use what they call flying buttresses. It's, if you stack block in a circle, if you just go up square and put a square roof on it, it would collapse. But by having the blocks come to a point, they're pushing on each other, distributing the weight, and they can stay up. That way you can support a lot of weight. The roof on these things is enormous. The Cathedral Basilica in Esquipulas, Guatemala. Some of these names I've never heard before. If I've heard them before, I know how to pronounce them. I just may not be able to. But some of these I've never heard. I don't know where. I've never been to Guatemala. But that has, it's a white architecture, bell tower, red roofs, tile roofs, Mediterranean in style. Beautiful looking church. Again, make sure God visits these on a regular basis. Some of these churches, because of their appearance, when they sometimes will have a pilgrimage. Back in January, they had a pilgrimage to this. People all over Latin America made their way to this. People used to go to the temple from all over, not just Israel, but if there were any Jews in surrounding countries, they would all go there. It was required in the law that they visit the temple a few times a year. This is an interesting looking building. The grounds look pretty, lots of pink flowers on trees and a lake. The Cathedral of the Basilica of Our Lady of Amiens in Amiens, France. If you're looking for places to go visit, and you go to any of these places, you can take a Mediterranean cruise and go through the Holy Land where Paul and his ministries were. You're not going to see a lot of the places as they were, but even if you go to Jerusalem, you're not going to see what it looked like then. It's been destroyed and rebuilt so many times that they've actually uncovered the Via Dolorosa like 10 feet down. They've tunneled into it, cleaned it all out, supported it with steel beams so they can take tourists down there now, and you can walk on the ground that Jesus walked on. It's not up on the surface. And they find walls. They found where the wall around Jerusalem was. It's been breached so many times that it's not really a walled city anymore. They can find it, and they were thick. 6-foot thick walls or more. San Sebastian Cathedral in Lipa, Batangas, Philippines. Now, some of these show the outside, some of these show the inside. This is a domed church. Most of them were because, again, whether it's a flying buttress or a dome, you can support structures with that. That's what they knew how to do back then. And so there's a lot of curved architecture in here, but the paintings, the inside, is very ornate. Looking at, this looks almost like a presidential palace. Of course, it has a big bell tower. The Duomo de Siena in Italy, Siena, Italy. You'd think it would have had more Roman architecture, and perhaps this is just a different era than I'm used to. But beautiful, lots of standard windows that go up and then curve to a point. Beautiful. It's a big, big building, not just the sanctuary. Now that's not a very good picture. Why would they put this in here? There's a crosswalk that has the church image on it, so that when the light turns green, you can walk to the church. Cathedral of San Paulo, Brazil. A standard one with, of course, a bell tower. Now this is an interesting one. The Cathedral Church of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Lincoln, England. It doesn't look right. Beautiful architecture, flying buttresses everywhere, posts and towers and stuff, and beautiful design. And they're not folding chairs, but they're chairs with metal legs, like you'd set up at an auditorium or something. Just doesn't look right. Something doesn't look right. But they can get more people in that way. I guess pews were out of the ordinary. Okay, I think there's like 23 of these. I don't know how far we're going. I'm going to try to keep this down, but I want to put pictures up of these because you just got to see these. The St. Sophia Cathedral in Kiev, Ukraine. I think the point that I'm trying to make with this is that there are, at one point in time, Christian enclaves everywhere. Mostly Catholic, because they were the biggest ones funding all this. Essentially, the city and the church paid for Columbus to come to America, to colonize. They did a really poor job of that, but they did come here. This is an interesting building. It's a white-looking building, a bunch of domes. They have the the Islamic dome type thing on them, but they got crosses on top. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, we all familiar with the one that they just rebuilt, the famous Notre Dame Cathedral. Beautiful architecture of the time. But there's a Notre Dame Cathedral in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. Obviously, it's a fairly modern version, relatively, but it was built in the similar style, not as Gothic as the original, but this basic similar design. You know, the two pillars with the smaller center part, sharp lines, but they still use the Gothic symbolism in it. And it's an interesting picture because right behind it's a modern glass office building. God is reaching the world. He's already reached most of it. Some of it's being taken back by the devil, but we've been around the world. We've got the Prague St. Vitus Cathedral in Prague, Czech Republic. Used to be Czechoslovakia. It's called the Czech Republic now. This one just shows it inside, a bunch of people walking through. Beautiful long hallway. St. Mary's Basilica in Gdansk, Poland. This aerial view is beautiful. Some of the red roof construction there, it's old style construction, beautiful. These are sites that you need to get out and see. Go into these churches, pray in these churches. You may or may not agree with the church as it's currently being run. That depends on what God's dealing with. We know that in the 7 letters of the churches, again, there were different degrees of obedience to God. We're simply talking about the architecture today. The beautiful stuff that man is attempting to create, but nothing's more beautiful than a lily floating on a pond. But this is man's attempt. And then if they worship inside, worship the God of the universe that we know as God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, then they're on the right track. Another cathedral basilica in Saint-Denis, in Saint-Denis, France. Now this one here has somebody buried there apparently, because there's a big cover, tomb cover. So I'm not sure who this is, but these are people here that were buried there. A lot of churches have cemeteries, especially here in Georgia. I mean, you can't find a Baptist church without a cemetery. They don't exist. And if they do, it's brand new, and nobody's died yet. Another beautiful, going around the world, the Metropolitan Cathedral in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Lots of golds and yellows, and a lot of vertical height to all these churches. All right, well, that seems to be the list here on this page. This is just somebody's compilation. It's not necessarily a recommendation of the best. It didn't have Notre Dame on it. And we all are familiar with Notre Dame if we've seen the Hunchback of Notre Dame. There's been a couple of versions of it, but the original one with Quasimodo. The Bell Ringer. I watched a episode of, I love detective shows, and I love to watch things like Sherlock Holmes and the British stuff. Midsummer Murders. They're not graphic for the most part, murders. They're just the detectives trying to solve these. Quite frankly, I wouldn't live in Midsummer or any of the surrounding areas because they've got so many murders there that they have a TV show about it. Okay, it's fictitious, but it's fun to watch these people use their brain to figure stuff out, at least the writers. And that's what Sherlock Holmes did too. He would use his little gray cells. Oh, that's Perot. Sherlock Holmes would just think about it and maybe use a little cocaine. Yeah, they weren't angels back in time just like they are today. They all have bad problems to deal with. But what I'm trying to encourage you to do is to get out, go around, go to your local big city and look at the churches. It's interesting. Don't forget to take God with you. Take him in there. If you find that it's not exactly the denomination that you are or want to be or would like to be, take the best part of what we can, our smiles, and just be polite and kind. And, well, that's not the way I believe, but as long as we believe in the gospel, we can agree to disagree. Standard comeback line for anything. I talked to Mormons setting up in the parking lot of the supermarket. I'm not trying to convert them. I'm just trying to share God's love. And anybody willing to talk about God, I'm willing to talk to. Even if they don't have the right concept. Maybe they might pick something up. Maybe they might be able to question their own belief system. Don't go there with the purpose of trying to convert them. If they're in an established variant, let's just say, of the church, they've already heard all but what about this verse? What about this verse? How can you do this? But I've heard that too over standard Christianity. How do we know Jesus lived? Well, there's thousands of witnesses. The Quran wasn't written until 600 years after Jesus, and yet they take the Quran's word for Jesus as opposed to the Bible verses from eyewitnesses that saw him. It's not logical, but Satan sows doubt. Okay, just all I'm trying to do is to get people to get out and look. If you can't physically get out and go any place, as I have a few followers that are like that, get your computer, get a laptop, sit there and just take these guided tours and look at this beautiful architecture. It's like a beautiful painting. You hang it on the wall. It doesn't hold the wall up, but if it brings a smile to your face. We have pictures of Jesus that were painted by the great artists of the time. Did he look like that? Probably not. It's their concept. You've got pictures of Jesus. One of the churches we talked about, they have a black Jesus. Nothing wrong with that. Jesus wasn't black. He was probably dark-skinned, though. He wasn't white with long blonde hair and blue eyes. Although there is a section of Jews that were like that. For the most part, he's of the Middle East. They have dark skin. A lot of times we create Jesus in our own image. As long as we don't pick up our own attributes, we're okay. But don't forget, he's God and we're nowhere near it. All right. Get out and see these things before they are destroyed, and they will be. This earth will be destroyed. What are we going to get to replace it? The descriptions of the New Jerusalem look like they could be any of these cathedrals as far as the beauty. So God's not afraid of beauty. He just wants worship. He wants acknowledgement. Give him that, and the rest is academic. Until we meet in the clouds, God bless.